pronouns are she, her, hers. I am studying, my first major is justice studies, and my second major is community advocacy and social policy, which is a mouthful to say. But I'm getting a minor in certificates, but whatever. And what was the last question? Like identities?
Any identities you wish to share if you like?
Just queer in general, yeah.
Awesome.
So.
Awesome. Great.
Well, in high school, during my junior year, I sat down for the Pledge of Allegiance, and my teacher became very upset by that. And long story short, the school was very upset with me, and I was very upset with them because they wouldn't let me sit. And we worked out a solution that everyone was okay with, but it made me interested in like human rights law, civil rights law. So initially, when I came into college, I just used ASU's like major search tool and found justice studies, and I was like, this sounds perfect for what I want to do. So that's how I came to that. And I no longer want to go to law school, but just social justice in general. And then for my second major, I got a lot of credits in high school, so I would have graduated 2 years early if I just didn't do any thing about it. So I added the second major, and it's absolutely perfect for everything that I was looking for. So at first it was specifically for the under God part, because I was pretty staunchly atheist. I am still, but at the time I was like very fired up about it. And so that was the initial reason. But as I continued to, it was also about the liberty and justice for all thing not being accurate. And also, I just think it's weird that school children are forced to pledge their allegiance to their nation every day. That sounds like something that would happen in North Korea or something. So so all those reasons. But initially it was the under God part. So I remember I had a discussion with a vice principal about the whole thing, and I was telling her, like, I was crying, and I was like, my aunts can't get married in this country, because at the time it was like 2013. And like, so just things like that where, I definitely don't feel represented in the flag. So.
How do you feel like that? Like, obviously right now that's kind of also a big topic right now, like NFL and stuff. So what's your take on like that? Is it still very relevant or what?
Absolutely, because I definitely, that's my boy Kaepernick. I love it.
Exactly.
And so I feel it's an extremely similar thing. The pledge and the anthem are one and the same to me. And I have sat down for the pledge, or not for the anthem, for years. So seeing him like start to do that and other people following was really like a cool kind of personal thing for me.
So how was that process of like advocating for your beliefs with the school administration? How was that like, and like what did you learn from that, and what would you want other people to know from that?
It was pretty terrible, actually, because my teacher thought that it was disrespectful toward the troops for like to sit down, and even though I explained that that was not what I was intending, she was still very upset, and the school administration said, well, it's up to the teacher whether they want to enforce, if people have to stand, and so after going back and forth, and I very strongly considered like taking legal action against the school, my parents and I, but in the end we decided that for the rest of that school year I would stand for the pledge, but for my senior year of high school the principal promised that I would be placed with a teacher during the period when the pledge happens that wouldn't care if I sat. So I figured that was better than getting expelled, which is what they were threatening me with, because I figured I'm just gonna keep my head down and finish school and get my degrees and come back and my parents are really supportive in general, and I'm lucky that I have such like smart and supportive parents that are progressive, and that I grew up in that atmosphere to form those beliefs from the beginning rather than having to correct them later. So yeah, my parents have always been there and really supportive. So yeah, I think it's really important to remember that LGBT plus rights, the movement in this country started from like trans women of color primarily, and the police brutality is something that is central to the experiences of people in this community since the beginning, which I think a lot of people don't really connect the fact that like this community's movement started from a riot because of police brutality. So I think the two are intrinsically linked. And I remember this summer during Pride, there was one Pride organization, I think in Philadelphia, that decided to add brown and black stripes to the rainbow flag, and people got so upset about that. But I think it's a really important recognition that these are not separate communities, and there's a lot of overlap between them. So yeah, I think they're completely connected. I think that ASU as an institution is supportive, but there's certainly room for improvement, and that's sort of like my whole job as in my directorship. And so I think that ASU in general likes to brag about how inclusive it is, in the charter, and they like to use the words diversity and inclusion a lot, but that like it needs to mean something, So I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but in general, I think it's a like welcoming, supportive atmosphere. Though it depends, like when it comes to individuals, you never know. Like if a professor refuses to use your pronouns, then that's, but yeah, I think on the whole, it's a lot better than I think most people would expect from a university in Arizona. I think that ASU should like actively try to get better and have more support for students and faculty, and so like specifically with like take gender inclusive housing. I have it, and the process of getting it was a nightmare both years. And so I actually had a meeting with housing yesterday that went really, really well, so I have a lot of hope for that. But there's just things here and there that like that I think could be improved upon to increase the use of the resources that ASU has, because we have access to the resources, but if no one knows about them or no one's using them, then who cares? Like, for the community aspect, I think that like what you're doing for this project is so important, because that's like one of our central goals as Rainbow Coalition for this year is to increase visibility on campus, and not just of the coalition, but just of the community in general. So I think that's a major goal that I have in that sense. And as for like for me, I have a bunch of stuff going on, but I want to study abroad next semester in Cuba, which is could be really interesting.
Do you speak Spanish at all?
No, actually it was my first language, but my parents never like kept it up, so I just kind of forgot about it. But I can get by with Spanish. But I'll probably like try to brush up on it
Right,
before.
right.
But yeah, that should be really fun and
Wow.
interesting.
Wow.
So.
What would you want people to know about that are maybe homophobic, transphobic, they're very anti-art, like the community in general? What would you want to know maybe about you personally, and what would you want to say to them?
That's a good question. Because sometimes there's always the instinct to just not engage people like that because it just seems worthless.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think like that. I don't know what I would say to them, but just, I guess, just like telling them that, we're people when it comes down to it, and like try to imagine 100 years from now, what are your great grandkids gonna think of your view on this topic? What do you suspect like they're gonna think? I think that's helpful for viewing a lot of issues, like in this whole Trump atmosphere, and people saying like, what were you doing during this time? Like 50 years from now, people are going to be asking that, and just like people were asking that during the Holocaust. Like, so I think imagining like what's going to be the dominant tone moving forward can be helpful for checking your own opinions about certain things. Yeah.
So is there anything that you would say for someone who's either questioning or potentially not out yet but maybe on the cusp of coming out? Is there any advice that you would give them, just in general or like specifically within ASU?
Well, I would say that you don't need to embrace a label, at least not right away, if you don't want to, because I was questioning for many years before I embraced the label of queer, and I still struggle with that label even for a lot of reasons, but I would just say, just chill. You don't need to proclaim yourself as something to be a valid human being. You can just be who you are and figure things out. So I guess just to see where things go, and you don't need to like declare like I'm gay, I'm a lesbian, or and specifically with ASU, I think that's extra true because ASU is such a open environment that like this is the time when we're supposed to be like figuring out who we are. Right. So just to chill, like everything's fine. Yeah. So.